Hey y'all, and welcome to Malcolm Veyron Talks. My name is Veyron, and today we watched a so-called ethics expert stumble into Congress only to get politically butchered on live TV. This wasn't a hearing, it was a full-blown public execution. The guy came armed with nothing but Twitter rants and empty accusations. Couldn't name names, couldn't defend a word he posted, couldn't even stay on topic. Honestly, my aunt's Facebook posts have more credibility than this clown's show. Let's dive in.
My aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you do. I could spend the rest of the day reading your quotes where you make allegations against people and you can't defend them. Professor Painter, on May 5th of this year, you put out a tweet. You said, I'm going to quote, "There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's the Supreme Court." Would you tell me which members of the Supreme Court you believe are bought?
I was particularly concerned at that point when I posted that tweet.
I understand, but if you could, I've got really limited time, and I apologize for interrupting. Just tell me which members of the court you are bought.
I did not think that Justice Clarence Thomas should be failing to disclose his trips on a billionaire's
Do you think
yacht
he's
and
bought?
airplane.
Do you think he's bought?
I believe that there is grave risk.
Do you think he's bought?
I said there is grave risk.
Do you think he's bought?
To the confidence of the American people in our Supreme
Well, if
Court.
you don't think he's bought, why did you say it?
I said
Yes,
that
you said members of the Supreme Court are bought. You're here testifying as an expert for my Democratic friends, and you're saying the members of the Supreme Court are bought?
I said when the American people feel that way, when we have Supreme Court justices
feel that way?
on yachts and in planes of billionaires and not being disclosed.
Anybody besides Justice Thomas you think is bought on the Supreme Court?
I believe that the court needs to clean
Anybody
up
besides
its act.
Justice Thomas?
I'm not going to go through each
I mean,
justice.
you tweeted it.
I tweeted the way the American people
Did
feel.
you mean it when you tweeted it?
And I stand by that tweet. This Supreme Court of the United States needs to clean up its
Let me
act.
ask you a couple others here, because you've on September 17, 2020, you tweeted, "It looks like Putin's favorite senator could lose," referring to Senator Lindsey Graham. Could you tell me your evidence for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's favorite senator?
I don't recall that tweet and the story.
Well, I've got it. It's
tweeted
right
out.
here. It's right here.
I'm happy to look at the tweet, and I'm happy to write you, explain that. I don't know what that has to do with climate change.
Well, it has to do with your credibility. Did you say, what is your basis for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's? Have you ever talked to President Putin?
I have not talked to President Putin, and I would be happy to go look at the tweet and look at the story that I tweeted out and what Senator Graham had said in that context. You know, this is something
you say all this stuff. For example, you're here as an expert for my Democratic friends, and you say all this stuff. You called on September 16, 2023, a professor at the University of Chicago, very distinguished professor, Brian Leiter. You called him a racist. Can you explain to me why you think he's a racist?
I remember a series of tweets with him. He's a Marxist who put out a number of statements attacking African Americans and women. And he also was raising money for someone who had called the police on a black student for sleeping in the common room, and now has a wokekkk.com website attacking me.
That's fair enough.
So
fair enough.
I will just say one thing that I learned in high school debate, that when you have no argument, you simply change the subject.
All right. On October 15th of 2020, you said Lindsey Graham is soliciting cash payments in return for voting on a Supreme Court nomination. What evidence, that's a pretty bold statement, Professor. What evidence do you have for alleging that Senator Graham was taking cash in return for one of his votes?
I don't recall that specific tweet,
Here it
but
is,
I
right here.
do.
Here it
I
is.
do recall. And I
Do you think he was taking
I-
cash for one of his votes?
I have received campaign.
Do you think he was taking cash for one of his votes?
I'm answering your question, Senator. I have received solicitations from both political parties.
Do you think Lindsey Graham was taking cash for
one?
one of his votes? It's a simple question,
I have
Professor.
received cash, solicitations for cash on my email. And yes, from both political parties in connection with Supreme Court confirmation votes.
Well, I'm out
It's
of time,
wrong.
but let me just say for the
It's
record,
wrong.
my aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you do. I could spend the rest of the day reading your quotes where you make allegations against people and you can't defend them.
You've said nothing about climate change. You quoted everybody from a Marxist
Senator
to
Kaine.
all sorts of other people. This has absolutely nothing to do with the topic of the hearing, Senator.
This wasn't a hearing. It was a live televised takedown, an unmasking of a self-declared ethics watchdog who couldn't even defend his own words. Professor Richard Painter came in swinging, but by the end it was clear this man wasn't holding moral high ground. He was sinking in it. And the cherry on top? My aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you. That line didn't just sting, it summed up the entire spectacle. Let's be clear, you don't walk into a Senate hearing, throw around phrases like bought Supreme Court and Putin's favorite senator, and then suddenly develop amnesia when asked to back it up. You either mean what you tweet, or you admit you're just another partisan keyboard warrior LARPing as a legal scholar. And Painter, he chose the worst option: deflection, denial, and a dizzying dance around accountability. Take the Clarence Thomas claim. Painter tweeted that the Supreme Court is essentially for sale. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's this Supreme Court. That's not innuendo. That's not implication. That's an accusation. And when he was asked, directly, who he believed was bought, he turned into a malfunctioning robot. There is grave risk, he muttered. I didn't name names. Oh, but you did. The tweet did. And then, when pressed, he basically said, well, the American people feel that way. Translation? Don't look at me. I'm just the messenger. Classic. Then came the whiplash. One tweet after another, one baseless smear stacked on the next like a Jenga tower of hypocrisy. Senator Lindsey Graham is Putin's favorite senator? Based on what? Vibes? A dream you had? A BuzzFeed quiz? Painter couldn't say. He hadn't spoken to President Putin. But sure, let's just throw it out there, hope it sticks, and retreat when challenged. Very ethical, very expert. Oh, and calling a University of Chicago professor a racist, on Twitter no less, based on political disagreements and vague associations, that's not just reckless, it's libelous. And yet, when confronted with it, Painter gave a shrug and moved on. No evidence, no remorse, just vibes and venom. But the real gem came when Painter accused Senator Graham of soliciting cash payments in return for votes on Supreme Court nominations. Let that sink in. That's bribery. That's a felony. And when asked for any shred of proof, Painter's answer, I don't recall the tweet. Oh wait, I do recall. Then the pivot, I've received solicitations for cash in emails from both parties for campaign donations. The same generic emails we all get. That's your evidence for accusing a sitting senator of corruption? That's not just weak. It's insulting. Let's not sugarcoat it. This wasn't testimony. This was a clown show. An ethics professor playing dodgeball with his own credibility. And when cornered, he did what every bad actor does. He played victim, shifted blame, and acted like the room was the problem, not his own words. Meanwhile, the hearing had nothing to do with this circus. It was supposed to be about climate change. But instead, we got a highlight reel of unhinged accusations, baseless slander, and a man so far up his own narrative he couldn't see the facts if they slapped him in the face. And maybe that's the point. People like Richard Painter aren't there to illuminate. They're there to perform. to echo what their base already believes, to fire off tweets like rhetorical grenades, and to retreat behind academic titles when the blast comes back. But the Senate doesn't grade on a curve, and yesterday he failed the credibility test in spectacular fashion. A man shoots his girlfriend in the head, dumps her body in a wheelchair, and later uses a baby as a human shield, and the judge let him walk. Another woman gets murdered at a bakery. Same story, same courtroom. This isn't justice. This is a revolving door of death, and guess who keeps opening it?
Judge, congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to try to understand the facts on some of these cases.
Yes, sir.
The Albertus Lewis case. He shot his girlfriend in the head. Is that correct?
Senator, as I stated, I'm not sure if you were in here earlier, that case is still pending. He's not been convicted of any of those charges. And so I have to be really careful in how I frame my question.
Did he shoot his girlfriend in the head?
Senator, based on, those are the allegations of the charge, yes.
So you're saying he didn't shoot his girlfriend in the head?
He has not been convicted of anything, is my understanding. And I know it's a very old case, it's 2017.
Well, when you granted him bond, did you think he had shot his girlfriend in the head? He was charged with shooting his girlfriend in the head, wasn't he?
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
Those are the allegations. When he initially appeared before me,
Okay.
I denied his bond based on everything
Let
that
me
was
start
before
over, okay? Mr. Lewis was charged and arrested, so presumably there was probable cause, with shooting his girlfriend in the head and putting her body in a wheelchair and dumping her outside the hospital. Those were the allegations. Is that right?
I believe those were the allegations, yes, sir.
Okay. And you gave Mr. Lewis bond. Is that right?
No, that's incorrect, Senator. I denied his bond. When he appeared before me in July of 2017.
So you didn't give him bond? He didn't release him?
I denied his bond. It was 2 years
Did you ultimately
late.
release him?
2 years later, after the state violated.
Did you grant his bond? I'm just trying to understand the facts.
Yes, sir. 2 years later, after
You
the
granted
state.
his bond.
When he initially appeared before me, I denied the bond. It was 2 years after
Okay.
that I granted a bond.
You did grant the bond.
After the violation by the
Right.
state of the court order to try his case and discovery rules.
And then he went out and tried to kill 2 sheriff's deputies while using a baby as a human shield, allegedly. Is that right?
Those are the allegations in the other case, yes.
Okay. Would he been able to do that if you hadn't let him go?
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
When he appeared before me, I denied his bond. He appeared before me again, at which point.
And you let him go?
The state violated the order of the court.
But I'm just
and
trying
I
to
said a
understand the facts.
sufficiently high
You let him
bond.
go. If you hadn't have let him go, then he could not have tried to kill 2 sheriff's deputies using a child, as a human shield. Factually, is that correct?
I'm not sure, Senator.
Oh, I think you are. Let me ask you about Kelly Honeywell. You remember that name?
Senator, I did not have any involvement in that actual case, but I am familiar with what you're referring to.
Okay. You remember Troy Stevenson?
Yes.
All right. Troy Stevenson was arrested, allegedly, for shooting Kelly Honeywell, killing her, murdering her at a bakery. Mr. Honeywell was arrested. And Mr. Honeywell allegedly was a member of a gang. He owned guns, and he did drugs. Okay? You granted Mr. Stevenson bail. Is that right?
I didn't, in that case, I did not set bail bond in that case when he was charged with murder.
You didn't let him go?
I did not set the bond on the murder charge.
Who did?
I don't know who's, one
Then
of
how
my
did he
colleagues.
get out of jail?
Are you asking about the murder charge?
What I'm asking, and I think you know what I'm asking, Mr. Stevenson allegedly was arrested for shooting this bakery worker in the head, and he was granted bail. He was let out. You didn't grant the bail?
No, sir.
Who did?
My understanding is his bond was denied in that case on the murder case. Mr. Stevenson, I believe, after trial, was found not guilty of those charges. But I did not set the bond on the murder case. I did not try the case on the murder case. I did not set the bond on the murder case.
Okay. I think I'm out of time. Thanks, Judge.
All right, thank you.
This is what happens when ideology overrides accountability. A man shoots his girlfriend in the head, stuffs her into a wheelchair, dumps her body at a hospital, and somehow, he ends up back on the street. Why? Because the state violated discovery rules? Because a technicality in the process meant the judge had to let him go? Let's call it what it is, an utter failure of basic moral judgment. Let's break this down. The defendant was accused of one of the most heinous acts imaginable, cold-blooded murder. And the judge? She denied bond at first. Great. But 2 years later, when everyone's back was turned, she gave it back. That's right. She granted bond to a man charged with shooting his girlfriend in the head and dumping her like trash. And what did he do with his freedom? He went out and tried to kill 2 sheriff's deputies while using a baby as a human shield. You cannot make this stuff up. The judge tries to spin it. I denied the bond at first. The state violated court orders. I had no choice. Sorry, Judge. That doesn't cut it. You had a choice when you signed the release order. You had a choice when you saw the charges. Murder, violent history, gang ties, and you still let him go. If that man wasn't the textbook definition of a flight risk and a danger to society, who is? But it gets worse. Because then comes Troy Stevenson, another name in this horror show. Stevenson allegedly walked into a bakery and shot a woman in the head. The judge is asked point blank, "Did you grant him bond?" She dodges. She deflects. "I didn't set the bond on the murder charge." "Oh, really? Then how did he get out?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" A murder suspect walks free and you're just shrugging? This isn't legal nuance. This is institutional collapse. A woman is dead. A suspect is free. And the judge is out here saying, "I don't recall who signed the paper." Let me spell it out. If your courtroom becomes a revolving door for killers, you don't get to hide behind legalese and calendar mix-ups. You are not fit for the bench. Period. And let's not forget, these decisions aren't just mistakes. They have consequences, deadly consequences. A woman's life was taken. Law enforcement officers were nearly gunned down. And the pattern? It's not one case. It's not 2. It's a systemic abdication of justice in the name of process. This hearing wasn't just uncomfortable, it was devastating. The senator didn't scream. He didn't need to. His questions were knives, cutting straight through the fog of bureaucracy and exposing the raw, rotting truth. Our system is letting monsters walk free because judges like this one are afraid to stand firm. Every time the judge was asked a direct question, she danced around it like the floor was on fire. "I don't recall. That's not my case. I wasn't the one who signed that part. Lady, this isn't a game of legal twister. This is life and death, and if you're not ready to answer for it, you shouldn't be handing out freedom to people accused of murdering bakery workers and using babies as shields. There is no justice if judges can't say no to killers. There is no justice if every loophole becomes an escape hatch for evil. And there is no excuse for the lives that have been lost because of decisions like these. If this made you shake your head in disbelief or clench your fists in rage, then don't let it slide. Smash that like button, share this breakdown, and subscribe to Malcolm Veyron Talks right now. Because we're not just calling it out. We're burning the mask off this whole broken system. I'm Veyron. You've been watching Malcolm Veyron Talks. And trust me, we're just getting warmed up. See you in the next one. Stay loud, stay sharp, stay relentless.